All right, we're back. Dynasty Trades in 5. I'm Clay.
I'm Shane.
I'm Scott, trying to determine a strategy to figure out what I am worth to this channel. What are we worth? That's a good question. What are we actually worth, Clay? What are we worth to this channel?
I'm just a jag, man. I'm a NARP. I'm a non-athletic regular person. Yeah. So tonight we're going to be doing another show in our startup series. This is going to be our auction strategy show. So after we're done with this one, we're going to have a whole channel up on the or a whole playlist rather up on the channel, where I guess it's going to be kind of a menu of startup strategy shows. Let's get rolling. Where are you guys' heads at in terms of auctions? Like before going into the draft, are you thinking Shane was just mouthing, I love auctions. Are you thinking you're just going to blow your budget and again try to get those elite QBs, or how do you manage your strategy? Shane, we'll start with you. Your non-existent strategy.
First things first, what I love about auctions is that your strategy can change every 5 minutes. You have to employ my favorite strategy, which is basically keeping your head on a swivel and continually changing strategies. If you go into an auction and you're dead set on, well, I'm not going to spend more than 10% of my budget on my wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3 or whatever it might be, you're going to find quickly that you're going to end up with nobody you want. I also like the fact that you can continually bid people up in little dollar increments. Just keep nudging them up, keep nudging them up, keep nudging them up. So we're going to throw out players that we think the community's too high on, that are overhyped or overpriced, or we're just not willing to pay the price for. In my case, that might be a player like Russell Wilson. I know the community's higher on him than I am. The biggest thing is that you have to be willing to change your strategy on the fly. And that seems to be the hardest part for most people to get their heads around. Because like I said, a lot of people like to go in and they go, well, this is how much I'm budgeting towards each player. Well, that's fine in this mystical made up fairy world where everyone else is going to do what you need them to do. The fairy world's not good.
No, it wasn't it was mystical instead of mythical. It's mythical.
It's a mythical fairy world. Don't get attached to specific players. Get attached to ranges of players. Don't feel like I have to spend all this money to get Justin Jefferson. I have to spend all this money to get CeeDee Lamb, and it has to be CeeDee Lamb. Well, okay, if you can spend 2/3 of that to go get T. Higgins, go do that.
Yeah, Shane hit on some really good points that are, I think, things that you can plan for, but then when you get into your draft and realize that, your own mythical fairy world is its own league. And so you can't necessarily look at somebody else's website or budget and say, this is what I'm going to stick to, because then you get into your own fairy world and you realize it's totally different. The nomination rules, knowing the clock rules, knowing how it works, is it a clock that only gets reset every 24 hours, every 12 hours? Do more players come on the board every day, or is it you have to win a player before you nominate somebody? So get a handle around what the actual auction rules are. If you find out how to manipulate those rules, find flat tiers, right? Find flat tiers of a player that could give you a lot of value right this second. If you're doing an auction startup that started in 10 minutes and it was an 18-hour clock, just give that example. Throw out like Leonard Fournette, right? Leonard Fournette, everyone's scared he could go to the Patriots, right? So he may go for like 5% of what J.K. Dobbins might go for right now. Now, in 2 weeks, if he re-signs with Tampa Bay, he might go for 40% of what J.K. Dobbins is going to go for. But take advantage of that pocket of when you're doing the auction, whatever it is, during rookie draft time, after rookie draft time, during training camp, whatever. But find those flat tiers and put those players up first. Make other people act, or you act and get good values. I think there's good bets you can make there. I look at how to manipulate the settings first. What are the auction rules? What are the time rules? The other thing is, can I trade for auction dollars? I've been in auction drafts where you can and you can't. If you can't, then everyone has the same budget. There's nobody that can come in and, say in the middle of the draft, you know what, I don't like my team, I'm going to sell future picks to get more money. You think that ending prices in an auction are static until you realize that the timing had a lot to do with it. You can look back at the end and go, well, Shane, you paid $124 for this player and I got this guy for $8. that's a terrible deal for you. But it was all because you got your $124 player on the first day and I got mine on the 10th day. And it's just because no one had the money to price enforce. So it was all about the timing. It really wasn't an accurate reflection of what those player values are. So in drafts where nobody can move around money, I want to have my strategy. But at the same time, if I know everyone starts in my 12-team league with a $1,000 budget, sure, I want to employ my strategy where I get the 2 elite quarterbacks. I may say before going in, I'll spend 500 out of the 1,000 to get those 2, maybe more, until I realize in the auction that everybody else in the league is doing the same thing. If you figure that out early and you pivot, you may be able to get, a Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr startup price at 20% of what somebody else paid, and then you smash the rest of the value. I can go against my optimal strategy maybe and pivot and do it early enough that I can then have the most money at the end. We'll talk about that soon, but you always want to be the team at the end that has a little bit of budget to move around, and you can clean up value at the end of auctions. You can get every player for $6 when half the league can only spend $3 on one player, and you just pick your spots and pick off all the extra value. Then you have more assets going into the league.
What I like about auctions too is I definitely treat it more like the Wild West. Like, I don't care if I come out of the auction with way too many assets at one position, because I know that's trade value. It's different than when it's a draft, a straight up draft. Everyone seems to find a way, even though we tell them, well, don't worry about your starting lineup. Your brain intuitively goes, all right, well, I need to set a starting lineup in a draft. Mm-hmm. With auction, though, I can go out there and I'll just grab everything, because I don't really care what I spend on it, because I can flip it for value later. For some reason, I tend to lean more towards that than in a regular, what do you call that, old person draft.
Yeah, that's what they're called.
And don't forget to table talk. I'm hoping that you're in a league with other adults. And you feel free to just blurt things out like, wow, I can't believe Keenan Allen's going for $5. You're like,
yeah, exactly. Wake up, people.
Yeah, like, I know, trust me, I'm the price and force guy. Like, I'm always the guy that's looking at when people are going off the board for too low, and I'm like, that's unacceptable. Something needs to be done about this. So if you can table talk, bring it up. I would. Shame everyone, because there's going to be at least one other person in the league that feels like you. Like, Keenan Allen should not be going for $5 on $1,000 budget. Like, that is ridiculous.